the question is yoga exercise? Before we are able to answer that, let's have a thought, let's have a moment to reflect on the difference between how yoga was practiced in the past and then how yoga is practiced in a modern scenario. Traditionally, yoga was not seen as an exercise. It was seen as pretty much more geared towards meditation. But of course, in order to do meditation, you need to be in a posture, you're still in the body. So you need to practice the capacity of sitting. You might need to clear the body, let's say, physically, energetically, so that it's able to withstand long sitting practice. But traditionally, yoga is not precisely seen as exercise. Although, yes, in a modern scenario, we could include yoga as a possible exercise, as a possibility of exercise. Here we have a separation then between the tradition, which was yoga as, again, as meditation, but also as spiritual development. The idea of spirituality, or what is spirituality, that's the subject of another talk. But you could see as meditation and spiritual development. That was the milieu, that was the scenario that yoga was part of, which was practices looking for enlightenment, looking for discovering the truths of life, the truths of the universe, and so on. And then we have the modern scenario, which is yoga more for well-being, for feeling better on your body, feeling better on your mind, reducing the stress. And then on that sense, yes, yoga will be more seen as an exercise. Although they are a little bit opposites in some ways, if you think as one say that is an exercise, the other say that is not precisely an exercise, we could argue that one may lead to the other. So that's where I think that we can kind of pacify this discussion as is yoga an exercise or not, because you might start yoga as an exercise form. So you might start for the health benefits of it, the physical benefits, the mental benefits. But that exploration through those well-being benefits might lead you towards the pathway more of meditation, the pathway more of, let's say, spiritual development. So one can take to the other. Always when you think about yoga as an exercise, there's a tendency to consider the crazy postures, the complex, complicated kind of gymnastic circles-like positions that request a lot of flexibility, a lot of strength, and so on. It's obvious that they are not necessary. There have been plenty of examples, even in modern times, of people that did not necessarily do much of it, and they seem to be great yogis. They had great developments in the sphere of the mind, in the sphere of, again, spirituality. So it's clear that it's not necessary to do crazy postures, to do difficult, very difficult postures. But we need to consider here that what was the function of those postures, because they were present in certain ancient traditions. And one way to consider it is that those postures had effects that are not so gross in the sense that are not so clear, they're more subtle. So I would argue, for example, postures like the inverted postures such as headstand or shoulder stand, they were actually more used for prana, for energetic alterations on the body. On that sense, then, unless you are at that point of experiencing those subtle changes, then those positions might not make so much sense. I know sometimes people say that you do a headstand to increase blood supply to the brain, you do a shoulder stand to alter the function of the thyroids, for example, or to change hormonal function. But a lot of these claims have not been backed by science. That favors the idea that I'm exposing, that those postures that are considered more advanced, so consider the inversions, again, or the legs behind the head, those positions that request a lot of flexibility in terms of the lower limbs, like legs and hips, I would say that their function was actually more energetic, more related to prana, more related to the hatha yoga tradition of manipulation of the body and the energies of the body in order to alter or enter altered states of mind, of consciousness, of experience. A lot of practitioners don't actually experience those subtle realms. They are more in the physical, the more gross experience. So in that sense, you can do those postures if you have the capacity of flexibility, of strength, but also if you don't have, and if you don't necessarily aim to have them, it's not a request, it's not a necessity. Another question that people normally have is, should I do only yoga? I remember when I started practicing, they used to say that only yoga is enough for as an exercise form for healthy living. But I would say that nowadays, in the present, in modern scenarios, I'm not sure it might be. I think it's better to keep yoga as another exercise that you do. But if you think, for example, in terms of strength development, certain things will develop more strength. Think of weightlifting, like the kind of pyramid of strength. Certain things will develop more cardiovascular capacity. Think of classic cardio exercise such as running or swimming, like long distance swimming. Certain things will develop maybe even more flexibility, such as gymnastics, dance, and even in terms of body abilities, coordination, and so on, things like martial arts, things like dance also might develop even more. So in that sense, yoga actually loses out if you compare it to other forms of exercise in terms of which abilities are developed. Now, if you are doing yoga then for physical exercise, yoga can be an addition to that. It can give some cardiovascular benefit, it can give some respiratory benefit, it can give a um, some mild increase in strength. You're using body weight, similar to calisthenics for development. So it can bring a lot of benefits for the body, but again, it's a little bit limited compared to certain other exercises. So only yoga might not be enough if you're looking for physical benefits. Yoga can be used as a spiritual pathway. So that's something most sports do not offer. Now, you don't usually end a weightlifting session and lie down for experiencing relaxation, for example. You don't usually end up a martial arts session and you sit for meditation. You don't usually have a lot of concern regarding the breath in general terms. And also, a lot of exercises, they tend to be very outwardly focused, as a little bit a more competitive perspective of goals, of crossing boundaries, limitations of your body, and so on. So it's really objective bound. Now, yoga can be something that is free from anxiety about conquering the body. It can be just for the sake of experiencing the body, and that's very free in itself. Also, a lot of sports, because of this outward attention, they might not have so much of interoception, which is this capacity of the sensitivity of the internal state. So think of feelings, emotions, mental contents, these more subtle things, not so obvious, like giving a hard punch or strong punch, but something more internal, such as what is my feeling as I do it, what is my, does it create an emotion on my system? Aspects of interoception, of internal attention, of internal mindfulness, they are not so common in most exercises, but in yoga it can be, and in my opinion should be. So yoga can train that. It basically is a training for sensibility, sensibility in a good way, for you to be capable of sensing what was already happening but you could not sense before. That opens a richness of experience in terms of your body experience, in terms of your mental experience, and also it paves the way then for meditation, which requires a lot of sensibility, because perceiving the mind, which is something that is invisible, it's not easy. To keep track of the mind is not easy. You need to develop a lot of internal capacity of observation. Yoga can provide that. Another thing that yoga can provide, again, apart from the physical benefits as an exercise, is the capacity of relaxation. Most exercises that people do nowadays will give relaxation because of tiredness. So you go for a run, you get tired. There, of course, there's some connection with hormones that are released due to the exercise exertion, and then you relax due to that effect. Yoga can teach you how to relax without the need of getting tired of exertion, and that's a very useful ability to have. That means you can relax in all different circumstances, even if you're not moving.